I'll just get my harmonium. We found a harmonium repairman. Now we have to see if he can actually repair it. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodhanandana Rajajanaranjana Sodhanandana Rajajanaranjana Jamanatira Vanachari Jamanatira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodhanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodhanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamanatira Vanachari Jamanatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Gopananda Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Jai Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're going to continue reading. And Tanya's going to tell us where we left off.
We left off on 7:10:33. That was the last one we read, so we should be on 34.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Dev Guru Maharaj.
So you want to put it up? Prahlad Maharaj, the best among exalted devotees. This is the 10th chapter of the 7th canto. Brahma has just made Prahlad Maharaj king of the universe. And we had spoken in the last class about how sometimes Krishna may give you many things because he wants you to use them. You may not need them personally, but he may give them for service, or he, because of your sacrifice and austerity, he may want to make your life easier, and therefore provide facility for you. As you progress in bhakti, you will come to appreciate austerity. Like you'll like doing austerity. It generally, if you're a man, you'll like it more than a woman. But as women, also, you're going to have your own kinds of austerity. Some austerity is just not to think of certain things. Another austerity is to hear your rounds, or to sacrifice something that you like, that you really don't need, like this. And gradually, eating, sleeping, mating, defending become, not that we can stop them entirely like the Goswamis, they just become less important, less of a priority. So even though the devotee may be given this opulence by Krishna, still it doesn't interfere with his austerity. I believe it was Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He slept separately from his wife, and his guru told him, you should sleep next to your wife. So then he got in the bed next to her and he stayed up all night and chanted japa. So, it's like, what do you do when you sleep next to your wife? Well, we won't ask you. Hopefully everything you dream about Krishna. But that's what he did. And Param Drishta Nivartate, Bhagavad Gita, we've heard that verse many times. Raso Varjam Masopyasya. When you're tasting rasa, your relation with Krishna, naturally, everything material becomes tasteless. But until you're tasting that rasa, there's still taste. And sometimes we give the example, it's so easy to understand. If you have something and you think it's good, you only think it's good because you haven't heard what's better or seen what's better. So because I do recording, I have to have an ear to hear what sounds good. That's part of what it means to recording. So if I bring you into my room, my studio, and I play something, you'll say, oh, that sounds good. And then I play something recorded on another microphone and you go, oh, that sounds really good. Then I'll go back to the first one and you'll say, no, that doesn't sound good. So you lost your taste for the first one, but the first one did sound good before you heard the second one. So we have that experience here in this world, or you like your car and your friend gets a new car and now you can't drive your car anymore because you actually have experience of what a really good car is. And you get in your car and it's like, oh, this is a piece of junk. But you never thought like that before. So when you advance to a certain threshold in bhakti, that's what happens. Everything material becomes like your old car that you thought was fine, that you realize it was never fine. I just didn't know what was better. Of course, someone will say, well, isn't it better? You don't know it's better, then you can live simply. Yeah, well, maybe materially speaking, it's not the best example, but it's not exactly, we're not making that point about living simply. We're just making a point when you experience something better. The thing that you thought was good, it doesn't look good anymore. You put on the new comfortable shoes and you realize your other shoes were actually not that comfortable. I mean, they were, but nothing like this. Or the chair, or the computer, or whatever. You get something upgraded and you realize, oh yeah, this is much better. You have an old phone and old computer and it's really slow. You don't know it's slow until you get a faster one. And if I gave you a 1992 computer, well, you couldn't even run the software today, but if I did and you turn it on, you'd wait 4 minutes for it to boot up, and then you'd click on Word and wait a minute and a half for it to load. And so you'd think this is so slow, but in 1992, that was normal. So you can say a higher taste spoils you to what you thought was good. So we think material life is good and everything is fine. That is a sign that we don't have a higher taste. That's how you know you don't have a higher taste. When you when you understand something is not helpful, but you still have a taste, it's because we don't have a higher taste. So ultimately in bhakti, you can't just renounce because you know something is bad and you can associate all kinds of pain with it. That helps you. But in the long run, ultimately, you can only permanently renounce because you're attracted to Krishna, that you're actually tasting that. In order to get to that platform where you taste, sometimes we renounce things by our own strength, by intelligence, by gyan. This is bad. This will cause me misery. I'll suffer if I do this. Never going to do that again. But that's not the highest stage because you're thinking about you and your suffering. So it's not really bhakti, but it's useful in bhakti because at least then you won't do those things. And then you clear the field out so you can plant the seed of bhakti, because if all those sinful activities are going on, you can't plant it. But a lot of times giving up those sinful activities is motivated simply by I don't want to suffer, which is like liberation, jnana mishra, mixed with gyan. So we don't want that as a permanent place. If it's useful, we can use it. But we should understand it's not the highest. It's not what's going to keep us there, because it's more about me and not suffering. Never going to do that again. That's good. You renounce that. Why aren't you going to do it? Because I suffer when I do it. And so the other side of that is, and if I didn't suffer, I would do it. So what's the good of that? Krishna, of course, arranges for the suffering so we'll be detached. But why? But on the bhakti platform, why are you doing it? My guru asked me, Krishna wants me to. This will satisfy Krishna. This will satisfy Guru. This will please them. I want to love them. They want me to do it. That's ultimately how we should be motivated. That should be the strongest motivation. And if we don't come to that motivation, then we're sailing on stormy oceans, because gyan, as we know, it doesn't work, because desire will always come. Like how long can you go on knowing something is miserable if you haven't actually become detached from it? Right? Like you're convincing yourself you don't like it. Deep down inside you do, but you're convincing yourself, well, I actually shouldn't like it because it's bad for me. But there's a little voice saying, yeah, but you like it. So bhakti gets rid of that little voice, because now that you have this taste, there's no more little voice saying, oh, but you like it. You said, no, I don't like it. What's to like about it? I used to like it because I wasn't tasting the nectar. And that's why there's this contradiction, because we sometimes say, taste the nectar, relish the nectar. It's there. Bhagavatam is for the nectar seekers. It's right in the second, third verse. So there's all this talk about relishing nectar, and kind of sounds selfish. No, let's go relish nectar. What are you doing today, Prabhu? I'm going to go relish nectar. It sounds very selfish, but understood in the proper context, relishing nectar means I'm doing things to increase my attraction for Krishna, increase my love for Krishna, and that's the goal. And I need to relish that nectar. And relishing the nectar is actually a sign that I'm advancing. And the senses, Atasi Krishna Nabhani, Nabhavet Grayam Indra. Grayam Indra means material senses. And Rupa Goswami says, the name, not Atasi, Nam Adi, the name, and Adi means etc. The name, etc. cannot be experienced by Grayam Indriya, by material senses. So the fact that I'm relishing means the senses are being purified. So it is a good sign. Yes. So I can have the holy name, I can have Bhagavatam, I can have so many things, and take them in the wrong consciousness. And it's not, I won't be able to relish it because there's some material motive there. There's some contamination. But if I'm pure, if I'm advancing, then there'll be taste. Naturally, then there will be detachment. It's guaranteed. It has to happen that way. And so one meditation that's good for all of us is to think that every time I do something to gratify myself, that's taking a step further away from being able to understand Krishna, and taking a step further away from being able to relish Krishna consciousness. So it's a kind of a hypocritical dichotomy that I'm stepping towards doing something which seems to be something I like and give me pleasure, but I'm actually stepping further away from being able to relish Krishna consciousness, because they don't really work well together. We talk many times about those things you like to do. You engage them in Krishna consciousness, and then it becomes doable. But the principle is that the more a devotee can be dedicated without personal motivation, the more they will enter into an understanding of Krishna, which is so relishable to understand Krishna more deeply, and also taste. Whatever little taste we get, it's like an ocean. One drop from the ocean is what we can drown in one drop of nectar. And as you all know, because we are Purusha, little Purushas, Chiquito Purusha, we're little Purushas, little enjoyers, we will always seek enjoyment. And so if we don't get it in Krishna consciousness, we will seek it somewhere. We can't stop seeking it. It's our nature. And so once you get it in Krishna consciousness, you don't have to seek it anywhere else. And that's why detachment. Bhakti Yoga Prayojita in Bhagavatam 2nd canto. If you apply bhakti, jnanam, ashu, vairagyam, very soon you get realization and you get vairagya. Even if you're not even trying for renunciation, vairagya is renunciation. Even if you're not trying for it, you get it. It's natural. It's impossible that it wouldn't happen. So renunciation, detachment, sometimes it's just internal. Maybe I'm not engaging in sinful activity, but my mind sometimes thinks about it, or there's this desire to enjoy it. As we evolve in bhakti, that desire goes away. It won't be appealing. That's a sign you're making advancement. The sign that we're in trouble is the material attachment and material desire. It increases. So it's a sign of, if you're going to a doctor, what are the symptoms? That's a symptom of an unhealthy spiritual position. So that's a little sequel to today, Monday's class. We had, I think in Monday's class, we had talked about the rocks. You have to give up your rocks. Was that the last class? Was it Monday, I think? About the rocks. Krishna will put jewels in your hands, but if your hands are full of rocks, you have to drop them. Open your hands up, and then Krishna can put jewels in them. And that's where we get stuck, because we've held on to these rocks for a long time. And your friends say, well, they're just rocks, and Krishna will give you jewels. And he says, yeah, I know, but how do I know? Give me jewels. And if I drop the rocks, then I have nothing. So better rocks than nothing. So these are all tests of faith. And part of maybe a big part of what we're dealing with is we're growing up in a very faithless culture, where this present culture, it's so antithetical to developing spiritual life, much more than we realize. Like if we were living thousands of years ago and we had Mahaprabhu's mercy, the pervading cultures, at least many of them, were cultures where people, their brains worked, actually. They weren't thinking about sex and Netflix like 25 hours a day. They're actually thinking about life. Plato, Socrates, these were, and Christian philosophers. People understood, materialism will degrade us and so forth. We're raised in an opposite culture. So we have all these rocks, and we look at them and go, yeah, I know, they're just rocks. But the culture has impregnated us with thinking there's still some value in rocks. If you can't use those rocks in devotional service, they have no value. All they will do is weigh you down, and then you won't be able to traverse back to Godhead because you'll have too much weight. You know, that story I sometimes tell, you know, of the guy who falls off the cliff and he catches onto a branch coming out of the cliff. And, you know, he's only got so much time because how long can you hold on to a branch? And it's getting more difficult. And he prays, oh, God, help me, God. And he said, yes, yes, please save me. Yes, let go of the branch. Let's just let go. I'll save you. And then he's kind of arguing, but if I let go, you know, I'll die and I'll just let go. No, but how just so it's just like hundreds of yards down and just let go. You know, there's conversations going on. And he doesn't want to let go. So then he looks up and says, is there anybody else up there who can give me some advice? So that's kind of like, okay, Krishna, you said this, but maybe I can find a different instruction in a different canto. Or maybe somewhere Prabhupada said something different. And then occasionally Prabhupada may have said something different, although 8,976 times he said one thing. But one half a sentence, he said something that kind of appears to be the opposite. And we grab that and we make a tattoo and go, say right here. That's what I'm doing. That's the problem. We don't have enough trust. Kali Yuga, we're less intelligent, so that doesn't help. We're faithless, we have like so many marks against us. So we have to work around those. So we need to realize that's what we're dealing with and then work around them. So, okay, I lack intelligence, I lack faith. I have to use my intelligence more. I have to sometimes, when Krishna says let go, I have to do that. And with faith that he will catch me, because when the guy's on the branch, God says, let go. And he looks down and says, he doesn't see anybody down there. He doesn't see Krishna. So you look around and say, I'm supposed to do this, but I don't see Krishna. Nobody's there. You'll gradually see him. Okay, so we'll go on to the next verse, which is text 34, chapter 10, 7th canto. Patinanya tato devaha prayujya paramashyaha swadharmani yayurajan pramadhya pratipujitaha. O King Yudhisthira, after all the demigods headed by Lord Brahma were properly worshipped by Prahlad Maharaj, they offered Prahlad their utmost benedictions and then returned to their respective abodes. So the demigods were invested because whenever there's trouble in the universe, they always go to Vishnu. You know, they're being harassed. Where do they go? If you're pious, you go to God. If you're not pious, you roll up your sleeves and do all the work yourself, and you try. So whenever demigods go to Vishnu, Vishnu says, don't worry, I'll come, I'll take care of it. So they were, you know, kind of invested in this whole Leela. So now everything's good, they can go back. Text 35. Evam chaparshada Vishnoho putrat tam prapito ditehe ridistitena harina vairabhavena tohato. Thus the two associates of Lord Vishnu, who had become Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakasipu, the sons of Diti, were both killed. By illusion, they had thought that the Supreme Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart, was their enemy. Of course, that illusion was Yogamaya. They're not demons. But for us to understand something, sometimes the only way to understand it is through a story. And because Krishna can make up a story and then make it happen, he doesn't have to make up stories. You know, like fiction writers write a story. Once there was a young boy. No, I just heard a story where a man was walking through the forest and he saw a monk meditating and he said, my dear monk, I'm poor. how can I become wealthy? He said, go ahead, go forward. He went forward and there was a sandalwood forest. He was a wood chopper, so he chopped down sandalwood. It was good business. Came back and said, how can I become even richer? And he said, go forward. Went forward and he found a gold mine, really rich. So this monk is giving good advice, comes back, how can I move forward? Go ahead. Right? So how can I become more wealthy? Go ahead. He founds a diamond mine. And then he starts thinking, the monk is meditating in the forest, and just ahead there's a sandalwood forest, beyond that a gold mine, and beyond that a diamond mine. And the monk, he never got it. So the man thought, maybe he has something better. And he said, how come you never went to do those things? He said, well, my wealth is within, your wealth is outside. I found the wealth within meditating. So, and there are many stories like this. You'll find in different traditions the story of, searching, the man who sells his land and he searches for his wealth. And he can't find it anywhere in the world. And the man he sold the house to found diamonds under the property. So the diamonds were on his land, which he sold. And he said, you find many stories. They're not real stories. They're parables. They're just made up to make a point, because sometimes it's easier to understand a point through stories. Correct? That's how they do it in India. Correct? Correct? Correcto? Correcto. Just add an O and you can speak Spanish. I wish it were that easy, Tanya. I've made up my new Spanish language. Just put O in everything. Spanish, what do they call it? Neo-Spanish. I call it Neo-Spanish. Just put an O at the end of any English word, Neo-Spanish. You can learn Spanish in 1 second. Well, it'll take me 5 seconds to tell you. Put a zero, put an O at the end of every word. Now you know Spanish. Spanish-o. Now O, you O, no O, Spanish-o. That was easy. Just one more syllable. It's kind of tiring though. Anyway, so Krishna doesn't have to make up stories. He can make up stories if he wants. There are parables in Bhagavatam, not many. But if Krishna wants to show something, he doesn't have to make up a story. It's like, well, I have this idea, here's a story. Okay, we'll just make it happen. No problem for him. And the characters become illusioned by, Prabhupada said, it's kind of like Yogamaya and Mahamaya. It's Yogamaya who puts them in Mahamaya. So it's not really Mahamaya because they were put in Mahamaya by Yogamaya. You can meditate on that for the next 10,000 years, see where you get with that. But Prabhupada was asked, was Arjuna in Maya? Yes, but no. He was put in Maya by Krishna. So if you're, generally you say Maya means your misuse of free will, but if you're not misusing your free will, and Krishna is putting you in a position to misuse your free will because he wants you to act a certain way, then that's called good directing. I mean, like what director in Hollywood could get inside the heart of a person and just make them act? I mean, that's what they try to do, but Krishna can literally do it. So what kind of director is he? So now he's got Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakasipu angry, demoniac, in complete Maya, but not really, because Krishna's doing it. Mahamaya has to be free will. If you're not acting according to your own choice and free will, then how can we say you're impelled by the modes of nature? The modes of nature may be working on you to enact the Lila, but it wasn't your choice. That was Krishna's choice, and you're serving Krishna. So that's Yogamaya. Anyway, Krishna, they did that service. Krishna appreciated it. So, and as we've discussed, several times we discussed how much we learn from Hiranyakasipu and how Prahlad contrasts Hiranyakasipu. So you have this good and evil going through the whole story. Saint, sinner, just having a conversation. What does the saint say? What does the sinner say? Are you more like the saint or are you more like the sinner? It's a really great chapter, to kind of relate. Who do you relate most to? Prahlad Maharaj or Hiranyakasipu? So that's the idea. Okay. Mm. Mm. So we call them demons, but asuras, but they were actually playing that role because they're devotees. But in these forms, they are demons, so-called. I mean, at least they're acting as demons. But that's by the will of Krishna. Okay, let's go to 36. Excuse me. Punascha viprashampena rakshasotau babuvatuhu kumbhakarna dashagriva hatau tau ramavikramai. Translation. Being cursed by the Brahmins, the same two associates took birth again as Kumbhakarna and the ten-headed Ravana. Hiranyakasipu was way stronger than Ravana. You remember that story? There's like a gold mountain that turned out to be an earring. And Ravana went there. It's like a huge mountain, gigantic. It's like, what's that? Ravana says, what's that? Oh, that was Hiranyakashipu's earring. Like, pretty big guy, right? Way bigger than Ravana. These two Rakshasas were killed by Lord Ramachandra's extraordinary power. So Lord Ramachandra wanted to enact Leelas to absorb us in Krishna consciousness, absorb us in thinking about him, and also to again highlight the actions of demons, demoniac mentality, and also to draw us closer to him, because it seemed like Lord Ram was the underdog at some point. So we are feeling sympathy for God's suffering. That's like amazing. But that's what that Leela does. Oh no, Ram's going to lose. It's what happens in Vrindavan, when Krishna is in the hoods of Kali, and everybody's thinking, oh, Kali is killing him. And they're all fainting. So in hearing the pastime of Lord Ram, you get to experience a little bit of that, even as a conditioned soul. How sad it was that Sita was banished, or originally how sad it was that Lord Ram was banished, and then how sad it was that, how difficult it was to capture Sita. Thinking maybe he'll lose the battle. Of course, we know he won't lose, but he plays that Leela to make it look like he would lose. And then, oh no. So there's suspense, there's action. Looks like Lakshman's going to die. Getting the drugs, we have to get them in time. Maybe he'll die. And so we are feeling sympathy for the Supreme Lord. Isn't it? When you read that pastime, don't you feel something like that? That's amazing, right? So he does that Leela to extract these feelings from our heart because they're healthy for us. I mean, they're purifying, right? Okay, text 37. Shayana Yudhi Nirbina Hridaya Ramasakh Shayakoi Tatschita Jahato Deham Yata Praktana Janmani. Pierced by the arrows of Lord Ramchandra, both Kumbhakarna and Ravana lay on the ground and left their bodies fully absorbed in thought of the Lord, just as they had in their previous births, as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakasipu. But not so favorably. That's the problem. They were thinking, but not so favorably. Hare Krishna. You know, we see such an interesting thing in these leelas. We see that when someone turns against the Lord, they can't understand who he is. Like in the material world, you don't have to like someone to see if they're beautiful or not. You don't have to like someone to understand who they are. Let me just read about them. This is who they are. They're a great athlete, actor, singer, politician, writer, performer, head of this company, whatever. But with Krishna, it's not like that. If you have enmity towards Krishna, you can't understand who he is. Isn't that interesting? I mean, where would you experience that in this world? But we have stories of devotees who mistook Krishna or Lord Ram to be someone else, thinking they were an enemy, and they fought with them. And while fighting, they didn't understand who he was. Until, this is what happened, Krishna took the fighting as devotional service. So by the service, they became purified. And then at some point, Bhakti mam abhijananti yavanyaschasmi tattataha. Krishna says, you can only know me by bhakti. So they did bhakti by fighting, and Krishna was having fun. Thank you for fighting. I enjoy it. And then by that seva, they came to understand who Krishna is. Interesting, isn't it? And Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavatam that what happened to the soldiers of Kurukshetra? Well, the ones, so they were all fortunate that Krishna was on the battlefield. They could see him while they were being killed. And the fortunate ones were the ones who appreciated Krishna's beauty. He said for them, they went back to Godhead. So Hiranyaksha, he's Hiranyakasipu, they're fighting Krishna. That's the person they saw at the time of death, but they didn't know who he was. They saw him as an enemy. So no benefit. So that's a really important point, because we talk a lot about, well, you can chant Hare Krishna, but if you don't chant properly, you don't get the benefit. So it's like you can see Krishna, but if you don't see him properly, you're not seeing him. So I have a story for you. I don't know. I don't think you've heard this story, because I don't think I've ever told it before. Well, it doesn't mean you haven't heard it, because I haven't told it, but it's not a common story. So there was a man during the time of Gorkishore Das Babaji who wanted to do a Bhagavat Saptaha, which is to recite Bhagavatam for 7 days. And he was really motivated to make money and become famous. And he invited Gorkishore Das Babaji to come, thinking if he comes, so many people will come. And Gorkishore Das Babaji refused to come. And so now nobody was going to come because he wasn't coming. So the man got an idea. He would set up his pandal across the street from Gorkishore Das Babaji, so that at least the people who hadn't yet heard that Gorkishore Das Babaji wasn't going to come would come thinking that it's his program. So the people came, some people came. They did the Bhagavad Saptaha, 7 days. And then it was over. And then after it was over, Gorkishore Das Babaji asked a servant of his, or someone who was helping him, go across the street and clean that place up. And the servant said, this devotee said, why would we have to clean it? Gorkishore Das Babaji said, it's contaminated. He said, but how could it be contaminated? They just recited the Bhagavatam. And Gorkishore Das Babaji said, I did not hear the Bhagavatam. I heard money, money, money. What a story. Isn't that a good story? I did not hear the Bhagavatam. I heard money, money. Go clean that place up. It's contaminated. I heard money and fame. Clean the place up. It's contaminated. I'm going to turn on my effulgence. Do I look more effulgent now? Yeah. How did you do that? You must have mystic power. Oh, it was quite easy. You just turn on the lights. Just turn on your camera lights. That's all that it takes. Yeah. So this relates to the first point I was making, that without bhakti, you can't appreciate Krishna. So you're going through the motions, but you're licking the outside of a bottle of honey. So you ever chant your rounds and it tastes like you're licking the outside of the bottle of honey. And you come up to me and you say, I don't like honey. And I say, how could you say you don't like honey? You've never even tasted it. Yeah, I have the honey here. Yeah, but you're licking the bottle on the outside. Oh, I didn't realize it. Yeah. I don't like chanting Hare Krishna. It's not possible to not like chanting Hare Krishna unless you're licking the outside of the jar of the Hare Krishna mantra. So where there's devotion, then Krishna reveals himself. Bhakti mama vijananti yavanyas chasmi tattataha. I am known by bhakti. That's it. I'm not known by books. I'm known by bhakti. Gorkishore Das Babaji could not read. Did he know Krishna? Yeah. You can't purchase Krishna with gyan. You can use gyan to help you. But if it doesn't help your bhakti, what's the whole point of having the knowledge? In the beginning of the movement, Prabhupada gave us this play. It was, I forget the name. It was this, you must have heard the story. There's two scholars, they're walking, and a tree falls. And one scholar says, not the tree falls, excuse me. An apple falls out of the tree. I'm a little tired. An apple falls out of the tree. Can you tell sometimes when I'm tired? I was like, I can't. I'm just too tired to finish the sentence. You know, you have this paradox. It's like sleeping is a waste of time. But then if you don't sleep enough, you're tired all day. And that's the waste of time because it takes you twice as long to do everything. So it's like, you know, why can't you just like sleep 2 hours a night and be fine? That would, you know, be so much better. Anyway, so many problems. So the apple falls out of the tree and one scholar says, did you see, my dear sir, my dear professor, that the apple fell out of the tree and then the tree shook? I said, no, my dear sir, it is not like that. I saw the tree shook and the apple fell, because how could the apple fall unless the tree shook? No, when the apple fell, that it caused the tree to shake. So they're like arguing back and forth. So as the play goes, do you know this play? Have you ever done it in your temples? So they're having this heated conversation. You know, every religious tradition has divisions. Did you know that? They're like, let's just like, some only have two, like Ramanuja Acharya, their Sampradaya, they only have two. They argue, like there's 10 points they disagree on. But anyway, Christianity only has like 2,300 different denominations or some crazy number. So as the play goes, while these two professors, my dear sir, you are incorrect in your assumption. It was the apple that fell first, and then the tree shook. And so they're going back and forth like this, on and on and on. I think you're mistaken, my dear professor. How could the apple fall unless the tree shook first? So a devotee comes up, and these guys are going at it, talking and giving their reasoning why. And the devotee offers the apple to Krishna. So it's like the culmination of knowledge is bhakti. So you can go on speculating about how the apple fell, but the devotee, he's more concerned with devotion. So the goal of knowledge is bhakti. The goal of knowledge is not knowledge. In material sense, the goal of knowledge is not, well, material sense, the goal of knowledge many times is just to make money, unfortunately. Or it's, it has its utility, obviously. In whatever it is you want to do in life, you'll need knowledge. But particularly in academy and academics, sometimes knowledge exists for knowledge's sake, just to know. We need, that's the whole idea of education. University education, more knowledge, the more the better. Just know more things, more papers, more research. And the conclusion is, you know more, but we're not interested in knowing more unless that knowing more inspires our bhakti, right? Correct? Correcto? Fantastico? Ecstatico? So they were absorbed. So the point is, this verse is saying they were absorbed in the Lord, but they were absorbed in thinking of killing him. Sisupal's position was different because he got purified. By these two deaths, he got purified. So his Krishna consciousness was different, and he went back. Of course, they only had 3 births, but there's some comments here. Let's go back. I think Sadhyarupa has a comment. It is said Hiranyakasipu and Ravana, while dying, thought the Lord was a powerful living entity, but not really God. But as Sisupal was criticizing Krishna, he got purified by the holy name, even though it was unfavorable, and realized Krishna's God when he was killed. Yes, that's what it is said. I still don't understand why they're running. I realize he's being killed by God. I think I answered that question already, didn't I? So this verse says they were fully absorbed in thought of the Lord, but it doesn't say that they knew him as the Lord. Whereas you rightly said, it is true. They got purified. So when they took birth as Sishupal and Dantavakra, Sishupal, he understood Krishna. He didn't like him, but he understood him. And so, because at least he understood him as Krishna, then he was now qualified to be purified. And sometimes you can appreciate someone you hate. So Sishupal hated Krishna from birth. It doesn't mean you can't appreciate. It's actually often you hate them because you do appreciate them. You just don't like that they have all those good qualities and you don't, or that they have more than you. So in that sense, Sishupal understood Krishna's position, but he still hated him. But from Krishna's point of view, that was good enough. Okay, you'll get liberated because you understand who I am. You'll get purified by my Sudarshan chakra. You could get killed by an ordinary person, or you could get killed by the Sudarshan chakra. Take your pick. I would pick the latter. If the doctor said to you, well, we could do heart surgery, you may live, you may not, 50-50 chance. Or you can do Sudarshan chakra surgery. There's 0 chance of living, which one would you take? Take the Sudarshan chakra surgery, right? 0 chance of living here. We're so unfortunate. We feel like this is our home and the spiritual world is like some foreign land. I don't know if I'm ready. Sometimes devotees say, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I'm ready to go back there. That's like sad to say that. You know, you've been in prison your whole life, and finally, when you're like 99 years old, they realize you never did the crime. You were illegally imprisoned. You're like, yeah, I told you that. You know, 70 years ago when you arrested me. They say, well, now you can go out. And say, what am I going to do out there? I've been in here my whole life. I don't want to go out. I won't be able to handle that. And then people are thinking, you're crazy. You can go out of the prison. You're free. So that would be quite uncomfortable. I don't know what's out there. It's unknown. This is my home now. It's my buddies, my jail buddies. So we're a bit like that. I don't know if I'm ready. You're out of the prison. We realize you're innocent. I don't know if I'm ready to leave yet. Let me think about it. Let me get ready. This could be hard. No, there's freedom. You know, government will take care of you. They'll give you a place to live. You'll be on Social Security. I don't know. I don't have experience of it. You just say that, but how do I know? No, there are other people doing it, but how do I know? I can do it. It's like, that's what we're like. So from the perspective of liberated souls, they look at us like that. Yeah, you ever go on Sankirtan, book distribution, or you do some preaching, and you're talking to a person, and they just like don't get anything you're saying, or worse, they argue with it, and you're thinking, like, what I'm saying is like just common sense. It's totally reasonable. Any pious person with a little intelligence will realize how logical and pure what I'm saying is, and they will argue till they're red in the face, and we're thinking, what is wrong with this person? They won't even acknowledge this little simple truth that I'm saying, and they're giving the stupidest arguments I've ever heard that make absolutely no sense. You ever had that experience? Like they're obstinately arguing, and they'll say anything. It doesn't even have to make sense, and they believe what they're saying. We're a little bit like that. From Krishna's point of view, we're like that. I don't know. I gotta wait. Surrender. Let me think about it. It could be hard. You know, if I'm ready, you know, Prabhu, you got to be real, you know, take it slow, you know. And Krishna's like, as one devotee said, Krishna can't say, oh my God, he can only say, oh my me. So Krishna says, oh my me, what is wrong with you? You know, there's like everything you could ever want, and everything you could never imagine you want is waiting for you. And you are afraid to get out of prison. And you're arguing why prison is okay. It's kind of nice, actually. That's what we're like. It's good to get some perspective on it, don't you think? It's good to realize how stupid we are sometimes. I don't think we fully realize it. Today, we have realized from the spiritual point of view, our IQ is not high enough. Good news is you can raise it. So Kamal says, how do I understand the connection between willpower and free will? You're a jiva tattva, which means you have independence. You have the independence to choose whether or not to stick your hand in fire. But once you stick it in fire, you don't have the independence as to whether it's going to burn or not. So once you stick it in the fire, you definitely are under the control of the fire. But it was your choice to stick it in the fire, right? So you always have free will. Now, when the mode of ignorance hits and you think, let me put my hand in the fire, and you don't use your free will to pull yourself out of the mode of ignorance, then the mode of ignorance will take you over, and then you'll be controlled by it. So that's the idea, right? We say, well, there's all these, there's bad association, the city is in Rajagun, bars are in Tamagun. So if you go in a bar, do you have to drink? No. If you go in a bar and you like alcohol, will you be inclined to drink? Yes. But do you have to? No. If you're weak, will you give into it? Yes. So what should you do? Use your willpower to not go into the bar. Excuse me, use your free will to make a choice to not go in the bar. Use your free will so you don't put yourself in situations where your willpower would weaken. So that's just practical advice. From a philosophical perspective, willpower simply means your ability to access your free will. Free will is the strongest in goodness. It's weaker in passion, and it's almost non-existent in ignorance. But you have a choice of what mode you're going to allow yourself to be affected by. So if you make choices which put you in the mode of ignorance, then you're going to find your willpower is pretty much don't. It's going to be hard. I don't want to say you don't have it. It's just hard to access it. If you keep yourself in the mode of goodness, you'll be you're in the optimum position to access your willpower. So if you lack willpower, you should make a schedule and follow it strictly. And that schedule should keep you in the mode of goodness. So let's say, you say, I have very little willpower. Okay, make a schedule, follow it. That much willpower you should have. Like, who decides how much willpower you have? You do. But if you decide to live in ignorance, it's going to be hard for you to decide to use your willpower, because your willpower will be so weak, and tamagun will out wrestle you generally. That's why we as devotees want to stay in the mode of goodness, right? Mm-hmm. Free will simply means you can choose to go to Krishna or not, or anywhere in between. When we talk about willpower, it usually means I want to make a particular choice, but whether I will adhere to that choice or not will depend on my willpower, my desire to do it. And that will depend on what mode is controlling us at that point. But what mode is controlling us is the mode we've allowed to control us. Right? Hare Krishna. How you doing, Prabhu? Today I'm totally in the mood. Well, what are you going to do about it? I can't do anything. They've got me. They've tied me up. I can't move. You can always move. It's just harder when you're in the mode of ignorance. Because you're jiva tattva, you always have independence. But in the mode of ignorance, it's really difficult to access it. So why would you want to ever put yourself in a position where it's difficult to access your free will? Doesn't make sense. Does it? I'm giving a class, or we're having a workshop, so I start Saturday morning. And the first topic I give on is the mind is the enemy, or we are the biggest obstacle, which is such an interesting topic. We are our own obstacle. What's that all about? We get in the way of ourselves. So we were talking, I think we were talking, maybe we weren't, but I'll mention this idea. Your intelligence has an idea, but your heart has another idea. They're different. You feel, your heart is feeling, your mind is thinking. So you get it in your head, but you need to get it in your heart also. So one important thing that might help you is that, Krishna says the mind's enemy, but he also says it's the friend. So what does that mean? Krishna, is it a friend or is it the enemy? Just tell me. You said it's both. How can it be both? Either it's my friend or it's my enemy. Well, it depends how you choose to use it. If you choose to use it one way, it's your enemy. If you choose to use it another way, it's your friend. That's your willpower. Oh, Prabhu, you have no idea what my mind is like. It is so difficult to control. Well, my dear Prabhu, if you don't control it, who's going to control it? Because if you don't control it, some politician will, some website will. You know why you take a guru? Because when you take a guru, it means I'm going to stop listening to the nonsense of my mind and I'm going to replace that nonsense with the instructions of my guru. Because my mind is one crazy fellow. If I listen to it, I'll stay in the material world another 10 zillion lifetimes. So I'm going to replace my mind with the instructions of my guru, right? And by following those instructions, then you connect with the super soul within who will guide you. And then your mind becomes your friend. So who chooses whether the mind becomes the friend or the enemy? Answer is obvious, right? So if you say, oh, Prabhu, my mind is so this and that, then we would say, why are you listening to it? You don't have to listen to it. You're not the mind. You're above it. You're the soul. Right? Okay, let's do an experiment. I want everyone to think of their favorite picture of Krishna, whatever your favorite, what Krishna's little baby, or with Radha, or sitting by Jamuna playing the flute, or that one picture. It's like, oh my God, this picture. It's so beautiful. Think of, or think of your deities. Okay. All right, so what happened? Well, I asked you to do something, and which basically means you had to ask your mind to do it, because I can't just force you to do it. You have to ask your mind. So all of you who were able to think of Krishna, you must have asked your mind or directed your mind to do that, correct? You just used your free will to think of Krishna. Could anybody stop you from doing that? No, unless you allowed them. So what does it mean? It means when you say, Maya made me do it, or this or that, it means you just did not exhibit your free will to choose not to listen to that thought. That's what it means. And therefore, you have become your enemy. Now, you tell your mind, okay, mind, Bajahure mana Sinanandana Abhaya Charanara Bindore. My mind, go find Krishna's feet and just rest there. He's talking to his mind. Now, generally, if someone talks to their mind, they get a free ride to the mental hospital and get locked up and get put with and shot up with all kinds of drugs. But we're always talking to the mind or the mind is talking to us. Either we're telling the mind where to go, or the mind's telling us where to go. Friend or enemy. That's why Krishna says they're both. When you control the mind, you reach the supersoul, which means now you're hearing supersoul. And if you hear your guru's instructions, the guru's external representation of supersoul. So you hear him, you're hearing supersoul. He'll guide you to hear Chaitya Guru within the supersoul. But my point is, everything started with an initial decision. If you ever say, I can't decide, that's also a decision. It's a decision not to decide. Right? I was tempted, I couldn't control myself. That was ultimately a decision not to control yourself, although it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't seem that way, but we have to think in those terms. When I gave into temptation, it was a decision not to control that desire. It was a decision to give into it. No, I didn't decide. I was just drawn. No. If you're drawn to do something, and I say, Prabhupada is coming, he's going to see you do that. You're running after whatever it is. Would you stop? Say, oh my God, Prabhupada's coming. You would stop and you're on a dime, as we say. Stop in your footprints. So, because I'm not the mind, because we are not the mind, I was able to direct your mind. I was able to ask you to direct your mind to think of a picture of Krishna. And you did it, which thus proves you can choose what you think. If you can choose what you think, if you choose to think, to want to, you can choose what you think if you choose to want to think what you want to think. I'm not going to make a t-shirt out of that one. Everyone will be like, choose what you want to think if you choose to want to think what you want to think. Like, they'll all get dizzy reading it. Or maybe it's a good one because then they'll come up to you. What does that mean? Anytime you make a decision, I'm going to go here, you made that decision and you told your mind. Not anytime. But often we make decisions, good ones and bad ones. But the bad decisions are usually the mind telling us what to decide, and us not distinguishing ourselves from the mind, and not distinguishing that's a bad decision and it's not in my best interest. So we then allow the mind to control us. But because the soul is higher than the mind, it's always potentially in control, can always decide not to listen to it. So Prabhupada, in talking about the mind and how to control it, his basic strategy was that due to our conditioning, your mind's going to think of so many things. He said, but don't pay attention to it. Just ignore it. Why did he say that? He said, because until you're purified more, you're going to have these thoughts. So there's nothing you can do about it. It just shows, like, what do? This person shows up and you're busy, you don't have time, and you don't even like them. So he said, I'm really sorry. I'd love to spend time with you, but I've got this exam tomorrow and I'm really behind and I just got to study. Could we do it some other time? Something like that, just like get rid of it. So this thought comes, this really juicy thought, something that you really want to contemplate, and you'd say, and you just tell your mind, nah, you can go away. I don't need you. That was Prabhupada's strategy, because those thoughts will come. So if you just lament when they come or think, oh no, here's a thought, I have to give into it, that's not going to work. If you don't like the thought, then Prabhupada said, just ignore it. Ever see a person, they're not mentally stable and they're saying all kinds of crazy things, and you walk by the street and they're yelling at you, but they're crazy? It doesn't ruin your day, does it? Oh, I was with this crazy person, he told me I was stupid, my day is ruined. No, nobody thinks that way. thinks, oh, yeah, he's crazy. He said I was stupid. That's how Prabhupada wanted us to deal with our mind. The mind said I'm stupid. Yeah, well, the mind's got nothing better to do, so it's going to do those things. Just don't worry about it. You're not the mind, and you don't have to listen to it. So whatever. The mind says, "You useless bum. You can never do anything," and you say, "Whatever. I'm going to do it anyway. I don't need, if you're not going to help me, shut up. And, just encourage me. If you're not going to encourage me, I don't need you. Just go away. Don't bother me." That's how we have to deal with it. So those are the choices we make. And if you don't make the choice, then you come under the influence of that conditioned mind, who's got all kinds of crazy ideas. And we don't have to go into why it's doing it. That's interesting from a philosophical, psychological perspective. But let's just keep it short. It's conditioned to do that. But just because something's conditioned to do it doesn't mean you needed to do it now in this point of your life. And if you don't need that thinking at this point in your life, you just ignore it. Say like, whatever. Right? It's kind of like, I have a toothbrush. It's electric. Right? I could also polish my toenails with it. We won't use it for that. We'll just use it to brush my teeth, right? So, my mind can do so many things. I could polish my car with that toothbrush. I could polish the silverware with that toothbrush. I could polish a lot of things. It's not really what it's for. It's for brushing my teeth. So, the mind can do so many things. No, thanks, mind. That's not what I need you for. I need you to think like this. If you're not going to think like that, I'm putting you to sleep. I'm neglecting you. Take those thoughts and I'm going to throw them out the window. So the beauty is you can do it. Now, the problem is a lot of devotees and people who are not devotees think they can't do that. They think whatever the mind says, I must do. Or worse, they think they are the mind. So if you think you are the mind, who are you to argue with it? Because you are it. So there's no argument. There's no you and the mind. It's just the mind, which is you. So argument's over. It's you, right? So who is the person who decides and chooses? The mind is the person who decides and chooses. This is what it decided. So, okay, let's go. Mind says, go rob a bank. We're robbing a bank. That's the end of the story. But as soon as you realize I'm not the mind, then you can say, that's a bad idea, mind. Why don't you just go to sleep and leave me alone? And most people don't know that. So whenever you give into the mind, it's at that moment you've identified that that's you. That's why you can't stop, because you haven't separated yourself from the mind. It's just, you're no longer observing a thought or observing an emotion. You become that thought and you become that emotion. And once you become the thought and emotion, you can't fight it because there's nobody to fight it. Does that make sense? That's the spiritual philosophy. That's the spiritual psychology. So if you want to be a spiritual psychologist, that's one of the fundamental principles that you would teach people at some point. There's a spiritual psychologist. He was giving therapy to a lady who was suffering from depression. And he asked this question. This is a classic question. You should write this down, all you psychologists. How long have you been observing the depression? How long, or whatever the problem is, how long have you been observing that you have low self-esteem? How long have you been observing that you act, you don't have your attention goes everywhere? How long have you been observing blank, right? She said for 2 years. And then he asked this question: how does the observer feel about that? Right? So now you're separated you from the mind, where everybody thinks they are the mind. By asking that question, you've helped them realize they're observing the depression. They're observing whatever it is. How do you feel about it? How does the observer feel about it? Interesting question to ponder. Maybe I don't feel good about it. Maybe I just have to accept it. But I, as the observer, am different from that depression. I'm Satchidananda, right? Satchit Ananda. You're full of chit. You're full of Ananda. And you're full of Sat. You are full of Sat, Prabhu. You are full of Chit, Prabhu. And you are full of Ananda. So the right answer to the question was, how does the observer feel about it? Well, the observer feels Satchit Ananda about it. The observer feels blissful and eternal and full of knowledge. That's how he feels. And this depression is just coming in the heart. The emotion is the subtle body of the mind. It's just part of the mind, conditioned mind, the mind perceiving things through the modes of nature. Hare Krishna. Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, I am about to leave because I have to drive out the door. My car's right here to the airport, which is an hour and a half away. I'm flying to Washington, D.C. to speak to the president. No, I'm not going to speak to the president, but we'll be close to the president. I don't know what I would say to him. I would say, hey, Joe, you should ban all cow flesh. It should be illegal. That would end the war in Ukraine. And of course, he would be shot. He would be killed by all the farmers who raise cattle. It's hard to ignore the mind when it pairs up with the body, yes. But it's the mind that's affecting the body. I could give you indigestion very easily, you know, just take out a gun and if I had a gun, it would be empty and I wouldn't shoot you. But if somebody took a gun out, pointed at your head, you would get indigestion immediately, wouldn't you? And you would get weak immediately, wouldn't you? Maybe gas pains, maybe nauseous, right? What's happening? So all these chemicals are coming, or all this emotional energy is ruining your body, throwing all the body, according to Ayurveda, throwing the airs off, right? If you're really nervous and stressed, what happens? It affects different organs. There's chemical. So, you know, Prabhupada said 90% of physical illness is caused by the mind. And he said that way before Deepak Chopra said it. So there must be an Ayurvedic. You know, anytime Prabhupada talked about health, from what I've seen, it was always Ayurvedic. You could always go to the Ayurveda and say, oh yeah, it says that in the Ayurveda. So 90%, mostly stress. I just read a figure that 90% of visits to physicians are diseases that are stress related. Wow, you can all say, wow. 90% of visits to doctors are stress related diseases. There's a lot of, and the problem is the stress causes the disease. And when you have the disease, that causes you stress. It's like, Anyway, something to think about. So, my dear boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, Prabhus and Prabhurinis. Prabhurini is not a word. It was a joke the brahmacharis made up in New York. Prabhus and Prabhurini. And I just saw, here's a devotee. Her nickname is Prabhurini. Brahmachari, Brahmacharini, Prabhus, Prabhurinis, Prabhacharis. I think I better go. So, can you tell Gauramani that I had to go? And I don't know what's happening on Monday, but I don't know. I don't know if these classes are going to be broadcast, but you could. Prabhupada Swami is organizing this retreat. It's called Mana Siksha, I believe. So maybe it's going to be broadcast. Janaki will be up there. So worst case scenario, she can broadcast. The first class I give is 7:45 tomorrow. Then I give a class in the afternoon, I think. Maybe I'll send the timings to Radhapriya. And she could. Somebody can tell Radhapriya that she can do some investigation advertise. So tell her the first class I give is 7:45 to, I think, 9 tomorrow morning. Well, I might as well just find out right now what the schedule is. And then, give me a second. Schedule. Saturday. (7:45 to 9:15). That's on the mind, the enemy is us. Then 3 o'clock on Saturday to 4:30 on conditioning. And then kirtan, 2 hours. Oh my God. 6:30 p.m. Sunday. Pride. I'm good at that one. I know all about it. 10:30. And then Sunday feast class at 1:10. And then talk on self-care. Wow, I'm pretty busy that day. And that's at 4 o'clock. And Monday. Sadhana doesn't end at 9 a.m. Mahatma Das, 10:15. Questions and answers, 11:30. Okay, that's it. I will send that to Radhapriya. And we'll see how it's going to be broadcast. Okay, nice seeing all of you. I have to run, literally, out of here.